Alright, so last week we worked on attention and leave it and take it. So, how do we do this week? Give me a report card.
Well, we did good, but I think now she got the idea, like, everybody comes to the door and has to, like, give her a treat.
Everybody comes to the door, has to give her a treat? What do you mean?
Yeah, like, now she'll jump at everybody, like, saying, oh, look at me, I can say it, I can do this.
So she offers things? Like she's offering the sit or offering the down? Okay. To me, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, what don't you like about that?
Like when she wants attention, she'll jump. And she sees, like, we say, like, we got the food.
Yeah.
Leave it and take. We were practicing that. So now when she sees the kids go like this, she's like, oh, I know what that means, but there's nothing coming out. So I don't know if that's good.
Let's put it this way: if it's not annoying you, if she's not doing anything wrong, I would say just ignore it. If she's jumping up for the food that's not there and biting the hand, I mean that's something different. One of the things I would do is when you come home, like have treats in your pocket, like randomly have treats in your pocket, and when she just comes up to you and doesn't bite, doesn't jump on you, doesn't nip at you, doesn't bark at you, all right, just randomly feed her. Right, pretty soon she's gonna be walking around waiting for the reinforcement, but you can avoid a lot of this offering of behavior. So at this point, imagine this. Imagine for a week or 2 weeks, like even though it's 2 weeks now. Imagine for 2 weeks, I randomly just give you $100. Just randomly give you $100. Pretty soon after I don't give you $100 for an hour or two, you're gonna start trying to figure out how to get that $100 again, right? Okay, that's what she's doing. She's trying to figure out ways, hey, how can I get this reinforcement? I like this game. I like the treats, right? And it's natural. She's going to start offering things. Personally, I like the dog that does that because then it makes training a whole lot easier. Instead of you guys having a relationship where you have to seek out her approval or seek out her energy, instead she's giving it to you. It's kind of like this young lady with her son here, right? If she came home and the son cleaned the whole house, she'd be like really, really happy, right? But if she comes home and the kid cleans the house and she ignores it, the kid's gonna be like, I'm not gonna clean the house again. So, anyways, other people, other homework, how we do this week?
Well, last time I said that she wouldn't do down, I was like stumped on it, and she did it the minute I didn't make her go under my legs. I just put the food on the ground. She just go down.
Awesome.
And I figured that out.
So
it was cool.
that's actually the next step. So once we get the muscle memory where the dog is offering the down the correct way, then you don't have to use your leg. Then you can hold the food down. The dog says, oh, I understand how to do this. So then after that, what you do is, like right now, let's say you have to hold the food right on the ground. Let's say you do that for a week or two. And then you slowly start bringing the food up a little higher. So it's 3 inches above the ground, then 5 inches above the ground, and then 10 inches above the ground. Pretty soon, you won't have to bend over at all. She'll offer it to you. Make sense? Good. I'm really glad you brought that up. Okay, anybody else having a difficulty, or you want to brag, or are you guys ready to move on? I really want to make sure you guys are having success. It's okay to tell me, you suck, Jason. Be a comedian. Okay, we're good.
She did all that at home. I think when she's on her own property, it's very different than when she goes to come here.
Yes, so this is pretty common.
Yeah.
The reason being is there's a couple different reasons. One, like I have a little training area in my garage. I turn my garage my own training area, right? I go into my training area, my dog just goes nuts. Why? Because he's in classical condition to realize that when I'm in that area, we play and train. If you were to come here for a couple months, guarantee every time you come in here, the dog's like, oh man, I know what's going to come when I go to that building. But right now, it's stressful to her. So when she's at home, she's relaxed, which is partially just because I think we see some temperament issues, okay? Plus, when she's at home in that area, she gets to play and have fun, right? So that area's been classical conditioned. It's a hard one. So one of the things that I really encourage people to do, I usually kind of have this talk on the last class, but a lot of times when people finish a class with me, they think, all right, my dog's trained, then they try to take the dog to a park and do training. I guarantee it's not going to work, okay? Unless your dog is super, super engaged and says nothing else matters in the world besides mom and dad, then you can ask for something outside your neutral environment. But right now, you're trying to lay a foundation. You're trying to teach the dog all the muscle memory in the neutral environment. And then once all those behaviors are anchored, where the dog understands those things, then you can start venturing out of your neutral environment. So when you start venturing out of your neutral environment, you go out in your front yard. Okay, the dog does good there for a couple of weeks. Then you go out on your street. Dog does there for a couple of weeks. Then you go to the supermarket, in the parking lot supermarket, and where nobody's around, and you ask a little bit there. And it's slowly building up and building up. Don't expect to go from your house right to a busy park and expect that they're playing frisbee and animals are running around and people are running around. It's not going to happen. We call those competing motivators. So anything that competes for your motivation is a competing motivator. And right now, there's just too many competing motivators. Okay? All right, so tonight we are going to work on stay and jumping up. Right? Even though stay is first, we're actually going to work on jumping up before we work on stay. So raise your hand if you have a problem with your dog jumping up on you. Oh, only half the class is not bad. Okay. Now let me ask you this. Why did you teach your dog how to do that?
We didn't teach her.
Oh, but you did. Okay.
She doesn't jump on us, but she doesn't want to jump on other people. She doesn't know because she gets excited.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Can anybody tell me how you guys taught your dogs to jump on you?
We let them.
You let them? Okay. So here's usually what happens, and this is not the case all the time, but usually what happens is this. So the little lab puppy is pretty cute, right? If I was able-bodied, I'd be on the ground snuggling with it right now, right? Pretty cute. So the moment they walk in the house, the lab puppy runs up to them, right? Let's say mom's having a rough day, or the kids got suspended at school, or something happened at school, right? And the puppy runs and they jump on them. They say, "Oh man, I've had a bad day," and they bend down, they pick up the puppy, or they pet the puppy the moment the puppy jumps on it. What did the puppy just learn right there?
That it's okay to jump on you all the time.
It's not okay that the puppy got reinforced. The puppy said, "Hey, I communicate with you by jumping up on you, because when I jump up on you, I get it reinforced." And the problem is, this goes on and on until probably about 6 to 8 months. You call me up and they say, "Jason, why is my dog jumping all over me?" Well, your dog jumps all over you because we've taught the dog to do that. Okay? So that's usually probably 75% of the time. That's usually what happens. Sometimes a dog jumps up on us out of nervousness. If a dog is not secure in their environment, in other words, if you take your dog to the vet and the dog's stressed, and the dog keeps jumping up on you, the dog's necessarily not wanting your attention. I mean, it is, but it's not. It's like, "Hey, get me out of here." I'm kind of worried about that. But 9 times out of 10, it's really because we reinforced a bad habit, and it usually starts as puppyhoods. Now, if you adopt your dog when it's older, you can still reinforce this. So the way we fix it is by teaching the dog that there's more power in not jumping up on us than there is jumping up on us, okay? Can I use you guys for a volunteer first? Just because there's like 2 kids and I know they won't do this. You guys want to help me out? All right, come on out. All right, what's your name again?
Raul?
Raul? Okay, Raul, and what was your name? Christian? Okay, Christian, can you hold the puppy for a minute? Hey, Raul, do you have some food with you, buddy? Yeah, grab some food, buddy. Okay, so Raul, come back over here. Christian, can you just hold the dog right there? There you go. So we're first going to do a test. Stop right there. So in a moment, Raul's going to walk up to the puppy. What's the puppy's name?
Shadow.
Shadow? Raul's going to walk up to Shadow. You're going to be talking to Shadow. You're Shadow, you're going to come up to Shadow. And I want to see if Shadow jumps on you, okay? Don't kneel down. Don't pet him or anything. I just want to see if he jumps on you. Christian, it's important. Let the dog out a little bit more. There you go. Don't give the dog any more leash than that, okay? All right, Raul, right? All right. Horrible things. Walk up to the puppy, talk to him. Let's see if he jumps on you.
Shadow.
Put your hand behind your back.
Shadow.
So, this is why I do this test, right? Because in order for us to teach the dog not to jump up, the dog has to jump up. But it's okay, walk away, we're gonna help this time. Here's what we do. I want you to clap when you walk up to him. I want you to make funny, goofy noises. Do you have a girlfriend yet? No. Okay, I want you to act like this is the prettiest girl in the store. Okay, you gave me, right? What would you do if you saw her? You'd be like, oh, I miss her. Let's try it. Oh, that works. Okay, okay, let's try this. Mom, I'm gonna have you try it. Let's see if the dog will jump up on Mom. Raul, why don't you take the dog, Christian? You did awesome, buddy. I'll let you out of the hot seat. Okay, Mom, put your hands behind your back. Or don't have to do them, I just don't want to have to, okay? Walk out to her, be goofy, come. Okay, you're not going to be a good demo dog. We're going to have to be somebody else. Who else wants to try to be a demo dog for me? Anybody else want to be a demo? You want to be a demo dog?
I don't think she'll jump on people, she doesn't.
Good, we'll use them.
Embarrassing.
Can you hold your dog for a minute? All right, Mom.
I lost our long leash just today, so I got a short.
We have a cancel class.
I know.
Do you have some
Where do
food?
you want me?
Do you have some food?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Can you hand
No!
It's wrong today.
See that ball right there? Will you put it, we're going to just get it. Christian, grab that one. Christian, just put it right here in front of.
Run it this way, so he's not playing with other dogs.
Okay, wait a minute.
No, I don't think she'll jump on me though.
No, you guys switched out.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're gonna be my victim. Do you have food? Do you have her food?
No.
Yes. Good, you need a good name. You need a good name. You need more than that, Mom. There you go. There you go. Okay, guys. All right, watch carefully what we're going to do. So first, we're going to make sure the dog's going to jump on in, which I almost guarantee it's going to. That's a well-trained dog. Mom, I lost my collar.
What's her name?
Poppy.
Okay.
So.
Okay, walk up to Poppy. I should not play the lottery today. Okay, Mom, don't move. Try to stay right there, okay? Okay, walk away again. Try again, walk up to her.
She knows that there's food in there.
Okay, walk away. So, we're going to act like Poppy jumped all over her, okay? Mom, don't tighten up on the leash. Okay? Okay, walk up to her. Watch what Emma's going to do. Emma's going to walk up to her, talk to her. She's going to kneel and feed. Good, we're going to do that again. Okay, Mom, pull up her leash tight. Put your hands through your leash. There you go. Okay, again, walk up to her, talk to her. And kneel. So try to stand right there. Try not to move. Yeah, not move. You're a tree. Say, I'm a tree. You're doing good. Okay? Good, so we're going to do this. We're going to do this 3 more. We're going to do this 3 more. We're going to do this 3 more times. Good. Good. Now we're going to test it. She's going to put her hand behind her back. Walk up to her. Don't do anything on her. And feed. So I really wanted her to jump up on there that time, and she did it. Okay, let's try it again. Are you ready?
Usually she's all over people, like she's out balls.
Okay, ready? Do it again. Okay, do her this time. Clap when you walk up to her. Clap. Good, don't feel it.
Oh, I'm just walking up to her.
Walking up to her. Good, okay. So, okay, really what I wanted the dog to do, stay right there. So I'm going to kind of describe what we did here. So, I'm the dog. I know when somebody gets within my leash length, I want to jump on him, right? Because I've been taught to. So Emma walks up to me, and she kneels and feeds. Before I have the opportunity to jump on her, she kneels and feeds, right? She does this 6, 7, 8 times. The 9th time, what am I expecting? I'm expecting her to kneel and feed me, right? Okay, however, the 9th time she doesn't kneel and feed. She walks right up to me and stands in front of me. Now, what I was hoping the dog would do is I was hoping the dog would jump on her. Can anybody tell me why? Do what? Nope.
Because she didn't give them anything.
Ah, you almost got it. So, there's power and failure. This is the same thing in life, right? Some of the biggest failures I remember in life taught me the greatest successes. I learned from my failures more than I learned from my successes, right? I learned I don't want to ever do that again. That's the first one to me, right? So, the dog is expecting the reward to come, but the dog jumps up and does not get a reward. So then the dog's like, well, wait a minute. I didn't get a reward that time. I didn't like that. Okay, and then we give the dog another opportunity. We walk away, we walk up to the dog, we don't kneel down and feed, we walk up to the dog again, stand in front of the dog jumps up, no reward. 3rd time, hopefully, we walk up to the dog says, ah, last 2 times I jumped up, I did not get reinforced, but the first 9 times I got reinforced. So now the dog learns, wait a minute, if I don't jump up, I get a reward. Does that make sense? We're teaching the dog to use their own brain. So people will say, well, wait a minute, why can't I just walk into the house and tell the dog to sit or to down, or to off, or why can't I knee the dog? Well, one, in my book, it's not fair to knee the dog, or add positive punishment, we call it in dog training, because it's not fair to the dog. When we taught the dog, it was okay to do this. It's kind of like this young lady with her son. Every day for 2 years, the kid gets to come home, eat ice cream, and play video games. One day he comes home, eats ice cream, and plays video games, and she punishes him. Is that fair? No. It's the same thing by punishing your dog for something that you taught him to do, and that is okay. Does that make sense? So instead, we're teaching the dog that there's more success in not jumping up than there's jumping up. Make sense? Okay. Will he jump on you? On you? Yes. Can we try this? Okay. Does your son want to hold him? All right. You want to hold for me, buddy? All right. Come this way, buddy. They're right there. All right. Let's first see if she'll jump. He or she? He. First see if he'll jump up on you in this setting. Okay. Walk up to him, talking to him.
You want me to go with them?
Yep, walk up to him, talking to him. Don't feed him. Just stand right in front of him. Okay, walk away in. So I actually want him to jump up on you. So walk right up to him, okay? Talk to him. Okay, you kneel down.
Oh, I supposed to get up.
Yeah. You're already ahead of me. You're doing good. Okay, so stand up. Put your hands behind your back. Walk up to him, talking to him. Walk right up to him. Stand right in front of him. All right, good job. Dog jumped up on her. Okay, now walk away. Now we're going to fix it. See, this is how I get return business. I do your dogs, and then get you to come back for more training. Now you're going to walk up to them, kneel and feed. Kneel and feed. Good job. Let's kneel a little bit sooner next time. Good. Walk away again. Good. You're going to do this 10 times, okay? Walk up, kneel, and feed. Good. So try to kneel a little bit sooner next time before he gets the opportunity to jump up. Okay, walk out. Good. Oh, so he jumped up on you, you got reinforced, right? So try to kneel a little bit sooner this time, okay? And I also want you to talk to him while you jump in, or while you're walking up to him. So it's really important that you create the same kind of environment that somebody's going to create when they come over your house. How many people are going to walk into your house cold stone, right? Just not saying anything. Most likely this young man has friends come over to his house, right? Most likely those friends are exuberant, right? Kids are walking in. We want to create the same scenario that the dog's going to face on a daily basis. Okay? Again, Mom. Talk to him, walk up to him, and kneel. Good job. Okay, 3 more times, and then we'll test it.
Billy! Hey, buddy!
No, he's smiling.
It's okay.
Billy!
Kneel. Good job. Okay. Now we're going to test it, Mom. So walk right up to him. Put your hands behind your back. Talk to him.
Hi, Billy. Where are you? Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy.
And feed. Good job. So
No,
you can, it doesn't matter. So the dog, here, walk away again. We're going to do one more test. I want to see if I just got lucky or if again just do that. Okay, good. Talk to him, walk up to him.
Hi, Billy. Hey, buddy. He's never
And feed. Wait, now is he never that smart or maybe you have consistency now? So I think the dog is smart all the time, but I think having something to help keep you on a schedule makes a big difference, right? So you saw the dog offer a sit. Now, I want to make sure we kind of clarify this. I didn't have to pay the dog because the dog sat. Okay? This is not a sitting problem. This is a jumping up problem. The reason why I wanted to pay the dog is because the dog made a choice not to jump up on her. Yes, the dog offered to sit. I imagine the dog offers a lot of sits because it's so small and naturally it has to sit in order to look up. But I want to make sure the dog understood it got paid for not jumping up. I really wanted it to jump up so it could learn the aversiveness of jumping up was a failure, but it didn't happen, and we still have to pay the dog for making the correct choice. So when you test the dog, walk up to the dog, count to 5. If you can count to 5 in your head, and the dog doesn't jump up, boom, pay the dog. But if you count to 3 and the dog jumps up on you, nope, turn around, walk away, then try it again. Make sense? Okay. So what do we do if we live alone, we don't have anybody to hold the dog? Right? There's a couple things you can do. One, you can backped the dog yourself. Like if you have a little small dog like that, you can tie the leash to a doorknob. Put it on the end of a bedpost, whatever. You can do the same thing. The young man holding the dog makes no difference. I just want the dog to be stationary. And the other thing that you guys can all do is you can put like a little Tupperware thing of food outside your front door. Every time you walk in your door, drop a handful of food. Every time you walk in your door, drop a handful of food. Pretty soon, when you walk in the door, what's the dog going to think? Up or down? Down. Yep, the dog's going to be classically conditioned that when you walk in the door, there's going to be a reward on the ground. There's no reward in jumping up on you. Make sense?
Yes.
No. Go ahead.
So that's why I was going to say, our grandma comes over and come in and she wants to jump over and just have them get
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. You know what you do right now? You put the dog up. You know why? Because you can't control the environment, right? The dog is still in the infant stages of learning. If you like Christmas and Thanksgiving's coming up, right? You may have a bunch of family walk in. Everybody that walks in does not remember what to do. Right now, you need to lay a foundation of learning or understanding, and then your expectations can change the more the dog gets consistency.
In other words, if you know they're coming over, then you put her on a leash.
Put her on a leash,
Not make jump
or
walk in.
or a crate trainer and put her on a crate. If she doesn't mind being outside, and put her outside. Try to avoid it because everybody that comes to your house right now is not going to have any idea what to do. Like I have people come to my house sometimes. My buddies think I'm nuts for being involved with the dogs like I am, and I don't mind if my dog jumps up on them. So or up on me, right? So you know what I do? I put my dog up. One, because it's not fair for me to have expectations of the dog not to jump up when I personally don't mind it. And dog's with me 98% of the time, and only 2% of the time people ever come over. That's not fair to the dog. Now, if it's something that I wanted to work on, then I would, if I have a buddy that comes over on a regular basis, I would teach him exactly what to do and I'd use them. Or I would try to have friends or people I train with come over and help me with it, but I'd make sure I control the environment. I wouldn't have a bunch of people come in. And kids are kind of hard. Like young kids are hard because the young kid doesn't think about the dog jumping up on them. In fact, like teenagers, no offense teenagers, but sometimes teenagers think, I don't mind if the dog jumps all over me. I'm a man, I can, right? Well, they may not mind it, but they're teaching the dog, every time the dog fails, they're teaching the dog that that's okay.
So you just take the job from the experience of the failure of making that
in making that failure. Yep. And then as the dog gets better and better, your criteria, your expectations can change, and you can start expecting some accountability from your dog. But right now it's too soon. Yes.
What about barking?
Yeah, so that's a really good point. There's a number of reasons why a dog barks. I notice both of these dogs are a little bit nervous around the other dogs. So a lot of times when a dog barks, it's in this case it's a stimulus to nervous. It's a product of being nervous, right? So when that lab gets a little bit too close to your dog says, "I don't like this." It says, I want to bark at you to try to keep you away. Earlier, the Rottweiler, the dog moved quick, and the Rottweiler kind of lunged out a little bit, right? So one of the hard things in it, being human and being quick thinking that we want to do, is we always want to punish the dog. Right? So if you notice, it's not that she did anything wrong or the dog did anything wrong, but instead of trying to work on it right now, we put the wall up and kind of block the dog, right? So this is one of the situations where this is almost too much of an environment for that dog right now. So by putting the wall up, allows the dog to say, okay, there's still other dogs around, but we're not putting the dog in a felony situation. So if the dog barks out of nervousness, we try to change the way the dog is thinking about the nervousness. We try to use some classical conditioning. Here's a really great example. Somebody knocks on your door. A knock on the door represents what?
Danger to myself.
Threat.
Somebody's coming in the house. The dog doesn't like somebody coming into the house, right? So the knock on the door now represents somebody coming to the house, stress to the dog. So the knock on the door actually means there's a stress coming, right? So one of the things I have people do a lot of times where if the dog is stressful about people coming over and it starts with a knock or a ring, on the doorbell ring, I'll have them randomly throughout the day have food, knock on the wall, feed the dog. Knock on the wall, feed the dog. Knock on the wall, feed the dog. What are we now doing with the knock on the wall? If in a week's time the dog hears knock, feed, it hears that, let's say 300 times, okay? But it only hears 3 times, knock on the door and somebody come in. Now what is the dog thinking? Hey, knock's not too bad, right? We're trying to change the way the brain thinks. So instead of punishing the dog, because a lot of times the dog is not making a choice. The dog's not making a choice, I'm just going to bark. The dog's saying, this is how I handle distress. Does that make sense? Go ahead, yes.
So what about if it's like more like people, like we don't have a fenced yard, we have a lot of property.
Okay.
And even in these 2 small fits throughout the square that we do have them out.
Yeah.
And so we have like a Costco kennel type black thing.
Okay.
So like that's where he gets to go. Like if I don't have time to put him, like the kids are outside. But people come over and he will, I don't know how he's getting not tired, but he will bark. Like it's like I can't get him to talk. Like I'll have to move him inside the house in his inside kennel. And it's like punishment, but it's like I literally am like, we're busy doing something, or we're as a family doing something, and little dogs can't ride dirt bikes, so it's like he'll get hit, so I have to confine him.
Yeah.
So but he literally, like the guy told me that, like he won't talk. There's nothing I can do. He will just like the whole time we're riding dirt bikes, and like I feel like driving through the neighbor's street, but like he'll be in the house and he can still hear us. He's persistent. Like he's just like.
So this is a hard situation because she kind of hit on and I'm not trying to throw you in the bus or anything like that. I want to kind of repeat a little bit what you said. So one of the things that kind of stood out to me is she says, I just don't have time, which is pretty common, right? I imagine she has another child or other children, right? Husband, she has a whole family. She can't dedicate all her time to the dog. So what you do have to say is, okay, based on my time, what can I do? So one of the things I would do is, if you know you have people coming over at 5 o'clock, at 4 o'clock, put the dog in the inside kennel. If you can, crate train the dog, put the dog in a back bedroom, try to not muffle the dog's noise, but muffle the outside noise so that maybe the dog is not so stimulated by the noise. The problem is a dog can hear a fart in the wind a mile away, right? So trying to always muffle it doesn't necessarily work, but sometimes it does work. The other thing you might think about, I hate to say it, is a bark collar. So
Okay, well we tried that. I've tested it. I don't know if I'm just not aggressive enough with it, but like, just base it. Or or I don't have it tight enough because it seems to get loose, but it's like for smaller dogs, like.
So there's a couple here. here's what I would try to do. One, most likely you're not using it snug enough. So a lot of people don't tighten it enough.
Yeah, like I my things, I feel like, because then he starts like, if I get it too tight, I'm like, oh my gosh, this can't like bend. You have to like stick it like.
You should be able, with that dog, you should be able to get at least one finger underneath it.
Oh, and then I think it just gets then like.
Okay, so the other reason is his hair.
Yeah.
So
okay,
his hair is, have you trimmed the hair?
No, I've never tried that.
Okay, so
I
what?
felt guilty getting it, but it was like I had to.
Yeah, so here, I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but electric collar and bar collars in some ways are more humane than a lot of people think. A bar collar is what's called a TENS unit in a hospital or a doctor's office. You guys know what a TENS unit is?
I just need to seem like it's gonna go crazy.
And so, yeah, it's not going to go crazy. In some ways, maybe he likes to bark, or who knows. A lot of times it's just nervousness. But the bar collar is just like that. It's a mild stimulation, and it's something that we use in medical devices a lot. So don't think, when people use a lot of times, they hear the word shock, they think electric chair, like in the 40s and 50s, right? It's not that barbaric.
So maybe
But
shave it a little bit.
I would trim the hair, not shave. I would trim the hair with scissors, or like take him to a groomer and just say, I need to bring him down a cut. And so have him really groomed short, and then try the bar collar. I think you'll see a big difference.
Yeah, I put it on him, and then sometimes I feel like it's kind of staring at the ceiling, like it might have like worn.
Yeah, so that's the hard thing. So the bar collar is kind of, the dog doesn't understand a lot of times the bar collar. There are some bar collars on the market that are really nice. Otherwise, they have some training features to them, where if the dog starts barking, let's say your generic collar goes to 1 to 10, right? If the dog starts barking, it doesn't start stimming the dog at like 7 or 8. Excuse me. What it'll start doing is it'll start like at 2 or 3, like 1 or 2. As the dog continues to bark, it'll slowly increase. Pretty soon when the dog stops barking, it goes back down again. So then it slowly, it kind of helps train the dog. There's also some that have tones on them, where if the dog starts barking, the dogs first get a tone, and then the tone follows up by a stim, and the dog starts to realize, oh my gosh, I don't like that tone. However, I don't really like that a whole lot, because a lot of times, I hate to say it, but you guys are all kind of young here, but when pagers and cell phones first kind of started coming out, pagers were really a popular thing, right? My dad, I had an electric collar that had a tone feature before. I had to wise up a lot over the years, but my electric collar had a tone feature, and it sounded just like his reminder on his pager, right? The dog would hear the reminder and just, holy crap, because he didn't understand it, right? It's not his fault, it's mine for not knowing. So the tones are really kind of dangerous, but if it helps, it helps.
He has like just a generic, like my friend had one for her chihuahuas, and this is the red one, red and black.
Yeah, there's so many on the market. I would maybe do a little research and see if there's some smart ones out there. Like, there's a company called Dog Training that makes some really good ones. I don't know if they make ones for little dogs. I think they do, but just do a little research. But if nothing else, trim them, put it on a little snug, but not so snug where it's hacking, but put it on snug. The dog should only wear the collar for no more than 3 to 4 hours a day.
He knows, I think that's because he'll get all like.
Yeah, they like, I know what's going to happen. So, anyway, sorry, but kind of, yes.
Last week, I had called with people that kind of live in a bird house next door. He went after one, and I couldn't get him to come back.
A person or bird out? A bird.
He came after a person. He brought me the guy's pants back. He nailed that guy over the fence, and I couldn't get him to stop chasing the guy and going for him and lunging over the fence. You know, he's tall, and when he's up on his full height, he can get over my fence line now. How can I stop him from lunging after these people? And that's my big worry. And he's going to go over that fence line and take one of these guys out because he doesn't like them at all.
Hold on. So wait, brought back a piece of the guy's pants?
Yeah, he brought back the guy's lower part of his pants and ripped it right off the guy. And I don't know if he
How tall? Wait. How tall was the guy? I don't understand the mechanics here.
The guy was in my yard.
The guy was in your yard.
He was in my yard.
How did the dog get access to the guy in your yard?
He was in the house. He heard the dog. He heard something out in the yard. I opened the door. Bam! He was there, and I, like an idiot, didn't have him on leash.
Yeah,
And that's what Brian told me to do.
Yeah.
And he went after the guy, grabbed the guy's pants, like as he went over to pull the part of the guy's pant. Like, I don't know if he scored the guy because the guy didn't stop and let me know if my dog bit him. But he hates those people, and I need to figure out a way to stop him. I was thinking about doing something like this, put a wall between them and him.
Okay, hold on. So maybe this is something we need to talk about afterwards, but this guy lives in your house?
Lives next door in a burnout house. There's like 12 of them. I've had the cops remove them more than one time, and they keep coming back. They're just homeless people.
Okay, let's talk about this afterwards.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I worry about him biting somebody and putting him down. Because he's a rock roller. That's the first thing they'll do. If he's aggressive, they'll put him down.
Okay, let's talk about it after.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so that was a rabbit hole we went down. Let's talk about staying. So staying is one of those things that takes a lot of patience. This gets really confusing. So I don't believe in the word stay as a marker, okay? Here's the reason why. If I put my dog in a sitter down, I expect my dog to stay in the sitter down, right? Until I release him, until I give him a terminal marker. It's kind of like when if you have kids, right? If you tell your kid, hey, go sit on the couch, every 2 seconds you have to tell your kid, stay there, no, stay there, no, stay there, right? The kid knows I need to stay on the couch until mom and dad tell me it's okay to get up. Does that make sense so far? Okay, so if you want to use a stay marker, you're more than welcome to, but your dog does not need it. In my opinion, your dog does not need it. However, I have seen some cases where the dog did stay better than if I use a stay, but the dog does stay better if the person does use stay. But I always kind of think that if they just reinforce the down or the sit, and they teach the dog not to move until they give them a secondary marker, that's one marker you can get rid of with the dog. Instead of your dog having to remember 50 different markers, if your dog can only remember 20, you're going to be way ahead of the game. Still with me? Can I use the other? All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to walk you through it. Part of my fun. So, we're going to start with your dog in a sit. So, Emma's going to lure her dog in a sit. Okay? She's going to act like your dog doesn't know how to do this. So, she's got a handful of food. Okay? She's going to take one step back, one step forward, and feed. That's all we're going to do. We're going to start with one step back, one step forward. Now, you're going to ask the question a lot of times, why only one step? I want you guys to look at some mechanics here. Watch when she puts 1 foot back. Now watch what happens when she puts the 2nd foot back. Doubles the distance, right? Now maybe some of your dogs will be okay with it, so we'll do this. Most of your dogs are not going to be ready for this distance. Okay, so back to your dog. Some of your dogs will only be able to do this, half that step. Step and step forward. Good. So she's leaving her foot back there a little bit too long. I want you to put your foot back and put your foot forward. And feed. Good. So do it again. Feed. Good. After doing this 1 or 2 times, or if your dog's really got a lot of exuberance, you may just do 1 back, 1 forward, and say, yes and feed. So the yes represents that behavior is over. Does that make sense? Okay. Here's what I want you to try. I want you to try 1 step at least a couple, like 5 or 6 times. Then if you think your dog is doing really good, you can try 2 or 3 steps, okay? But don't push it. All right? So let's stand up. We'll try it together. Well, you guys will try it. I'll watch it.
He seems to be all hyper today. I mean, some of them are going to do that. He seems to be all hyper.
Well, since you last are coming up, you learn section out.
I'm going to back up and go by the kid.
Right, exactly. Right, so every time we come up, so the dog comes by, that's our hand. You're basically redirecting and you're turning a positive stream. Or negative stream to a positive stream. Okay? That'll really overlap. Nicely done. Good. Make sure you don't feed your dog until you return to them. So you put your foot back, put your foot forward, and then you feed them. You're just hanging out. Are you got it? Oh, you're fine. Thank you.
Too loose. Thank you.
you can either ask the dog to sit or you can lure the dog into sit. If your dog's still learning what sit is, then lure it. Otherwise, put the food above its head. Good, you're doing really good, but don't do this so slow. And don't leave your leg back from that, okay? Put your leg back, leg forward, feet, just like that. Alright? Good job. One more time. Wait, don't. Now I'm going to say yes and move your hand backwards away from him. So he follows. Yes. Okay, lower. Yes, you back up a little bit. Yes. You're telling him it's okay to get up, right? It's kind of like recess belly. What grade are you in? Okay. They still have the bell at school, right? Okay. It's kind of like the recess bell or the class bell at school class, right? The moment you hear that bell, you know, all right, class is over. Same kind of thing. So after he does this 2 or 3 times, then say yes and kind of lure him out of the sit so he knows he can get up. Okay?
Get under your chair.
Nice, you got it. So, can I make a comment? You're doing really good. So, as you come up to your dog to feed it, put your hand down away from it. Because it's great in the sit to come up and do your feeding exercise. And I was learning, oh, you jump up. How'd you do?
She did okay. Then she was very interested in her, which is a surprise. Not that he didn't at all.
Maybe because he's golden color too.
Yeah, like a cousin or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then she said, well, it's retreat time. Better than I expected.
I saw she actually came, she wasn't under your chair the whole time.
Yeah, she's coming around.
Okay. Can I make a slight suggestion? You're moving a little bit too quick. You're moving back a little quick, okay? This dog's got a ton of energy, and any quick movement you make is gonna, and you're not feeding the dog for initial set. So feed the dog right. Not for the bark. Try not to feed the dog. If the dog barks, try not to feed it. Okay? And feed now.
Yes.
No, she just barks.
Stay. Stay.
Now, tell the sit, move your foot back. That's good. Forward, feed. Good. It's almost too long.
Okay.
Back, forward, feed. Back, forward, feed. Excellent. One more time. Man, I feel like an aerobic instructor. One more time. Good job. Excellent. You're welcome.
Sit. Yes. Stay.
No, you are. She's not a worker. She just gets like food sometimes.
She's a little demanding.
She hardly ever barks at cats or people.
Lucky you can train dogs.
I think she barks when neighbors start to see it all.
Oh, wow.
I don't know why. And they're close up and she'll at 9 o'clock at night and they're barking.
It is kind of weird. Okay, go ahead and finish up what you're doing, and then we're going to move on. Good job. Okay, so even though it's easy for you to reach forward and feed, don't feed it. No, don't have them come to you. Return all the way down and feed it. So you step back, but then you just reach forward. He needs to be fed for you returning.
Okay. All right, mister.
All right. Let's go over a couple things I saw. You're not doing anything wrong. You just don't know. So one of the things I saw a couple people doing is when they step back away from the dog did good. They just bent over and fed the dog. They really leaned over. So you return to the dog and the dog gets fed. Because what's going to happen is, let's say my dog is sitting right there. I'm back here, and the dog thinks, oh man, I did really good. Guess what the dog's going to do? He's going to get up and come to me for the reinforcer, right? So I want to teach my dog that the dog only gets the reinforcer when I return to him and say yes. Make sense? So at this point, don't release your dog from a distance. Don't say yes from a distance. And try not to call your dog out of it right now. There will be a time when you'll be able to call your dog, but right now, you really need to work on the dog staying more stationary than calling. Because pretty soon, if you do 3 or 4 call outs, and when you walk back, what's the dog you're going to expect? You're going to expect you're going to call him, and the dog's going to say, hey, I want to get up and come to you because I know I'm going to get reinforced. So return to the dog, feed the dog, do this 2 or 3 times, and then you can say yes, and lower the baby. Some of you guys, the dogs aren't necessarily on the yes moving, and that's fine, they will after a while. But one of the things you can do is you can say yes, and kind of just move your hand right in front of their nose away from them, kind of get them to follow. Here, Emma, we get an example of that, please. So Emma's going to give you just a little quick example. I know it's kind of hard to imagine a little bit of this. So her dog's here, she returns to the dog, now she says,
Sorry.
sorry.
What am I doing?
Say yes and show them how they release.
Yes.
Good, just like that. So pretty soon now the dog starts realizing that yes is my terminal marker, meaning that exercise is over. Make sense? Let me stay there. All right, so our next step is, once we establish that we can walk at the end, to our end of our leash, now our goal is to walk around them. Now it doesn't mean that you have to start walking around them right away. If you want to work on this at home, in your yard or your house, and you want to work on distance, that's perfectly fine. But just right now, because we're in this environment, we have to work on just at the end of the leash. So once established, we've reached the end of our leash. Okay, walk into your leash. So I came up with this little clock game. So I want you to imagine Charlie here, the Great Dane, is at 6 o'clock, and Emma's at 12 o'clock, right? Okay, so Emma's at the end of her leash. What Emma's going to do is Emma's going to step to 1 o'clock. She's going to step back at 12 o'clock, and she's going to return and feed the dog. So what we're doing is we're rewarding the dog for a little bit of a lateral movement. She's going to step back again. Now this time she's going to step to 11, step back to 12, and return and feed. Okay, then she's going to do it again. This time she's going to step to 1500. Gotcha. I want to see right here. So, anyways, the idea is each time you do this, you move a little bit more and a little bit more around the clock until the dog is like, oh, okay, even though you're moving around me, doesn't mean I need to break. One of the things that I see a lot of people do a lot of times is they push it too fast too soon, right? So Charlie's really experienced at this, but most of you guys are only going to be able to move 1 or 2 times laterally, and the dog's going to be like, I can't hold this anymore. I need a break, right? So 1 or 2 times laterally, yes. Release the dog. Let the dog know it's okay to get up. Then reset the dog up again and try a little bit more. Okay? Maybe try this, maybe make your goal, I want to try to get around my dog in a month. Okay? Now maybe your dog is doing really good, you can push that a little bit, but don't be in a rush to try to walk completely around your dog in a day or 2 or a week or 2. What's going to happen is the dog is going to keep breaking and you're going to get frustrated. Frustration is one of those things in dog training that we just kind of, we have so many high expectations that we want the dog to do so well that as soon as we start getting frustrated and stressed, guess what? The dog says, man, training's no longer fun. I don't enjoy this. Yes?
Now, how do you release them then if you don't want them to stay? What would you do to just let them get up, like you're, from this, they sit?
Here, can you give me a demo again? Here, Emma walk you through it again.
In terms of that, when you do the 12
Yeah, so let's,
o'clock and the 11 o'clock thing.
okay, so Emma's standing in front of her dog. She asks the dog to sit. She feeds the dog for the sit. Okay, now she walks the end of her leash. Okay, so let's say you've established this. You've done this for a week or 2. The dog's comfortable doing this, okay? Now she's going to go to 11 or 1 or either way you want to go, 1 or 11, okay? She goes to 1 o'clock, goes back to 12. Now, don't feed the dog. Now she's going to say yes.
Yes.
And just like that. So the yes, and she moves the hand back so the dog follows the hand. Now, let's say you wanted to do another lateral movement, right? Okay, so you just feed the dog. When you return, well, don't say yes. And then do your lateral movement, return the dog. And then, let's say after that time, you're going to release the dog. Yes, and then feed it. Okay? All right, so here's what I want you guys to try. I want you to try do 2 lateral movements. So do 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock, and then sit back down with your dog. And sit back down, okay? I'll show you the next step. Remember to feed them for the initial sit. So the moment you ask the dog to sit, make sure you feed them for that.
I've been doing it in front of the camera.
Do what? Oh, it's okay. You have a new haircut, so it looks like, right? You got a haircut? Oh, well, hey. I like the way you're growing your hair out, so everybody else will do. So, I'm going to teach you a really quick lesson here, okay? This will make sense. If I walk up to you and I try to force you to give me a hug, what are you going to actually do?
Back away.
Right? If I walk up to you with $1 million and all you have to do is give me a hug, what would you do? Right, give me a big bear hug, right? Okay, so if you try to pull on the dog, guess what the dog's going to do? He's going to, I don't want him to eat, yeah, right? He's going to pull back away from her. But if you take the food and you show the dog the food and kind of encourage her, kind of coax her to follow you, and then when she does, you feed her, pretty soon the dog's going to be like, oh man, I don't want to leave your side because I don't want to miss a chance at $1 million. Makes sense? All right, good job.
Make him go back.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. If the dog gets out, like, let's say you put the dog right here in front of me, and the dog breaks that, lure the dog back there. Okay, put the dog back and sit.
I don't know what this is.
Ah, there you go. You caught yourself.
Do I come back forward?
Yeah, walk. Wait, did you go sideways yet? So step this way. Now go back to 12 o'clock. Now return and feed. Good. Okay, now go back again. Okay, go the opposite direction. Now return and, or yeah, there you go. Now return and feed. Good. Now say yes and lure us.
Come on. What? Come on, get up. Come on.
She's like, I'd really like to sit.
Come here, come out this way.
How do you go? Shock color story. I have one too, but I love to hear your story. Okay, you guys did really good. Okay, the last thing I'm going to teach you is how do we do this from a down? So we talked about sitting, now we're going to talk about downing. I'm going to get my friend Ellie here. Charlie likes this game because he likes the guns. Okay, so one of the things with that the first thing we have to establish is giving our dog to even stay when we stand up, right? So watch what Emma's going to do. Emma's going to lure her dog into a down. Good. Stay there for a minute. So without, don't thumb down yet. So without her even standing up, the dog's already starting to come up, right? Okay. So watch what she's going to do. Okay. Release them. Good. Okay. So you have a bunch of pieces?
Yes.
So she's going to lure the dog in a down. Okay? She's going to drop 3 or 4 pieces, stand up, kneel down, and feed. Good. Drop them on the ground. So this is the only time I can tell you to drop the food between the ground, right? On the ground. So the reason why we want to drop the food on the ground is we want to load the ground. We want to teach the dog that that's where all the success is going to end up, not in the hand. Up to this point, the dog's learned that the hands are a cash machine, right? So why would the dog ever want to go away from the cash machine? So the dog wants to naturally stand up, especially if we have little dogs. Little dogs, that's one of the reasons why they jump up so much. Hey, you're here. Your hands are all the way up there. I'm all the way down here. So that's one of the reasons why when Emma started standing up, Charlie started to kind of go with her, right? So once you can stand up in front of your dog remains in a stationary position. Then you can start working the same way we did the sit. You walk back, walk forward, feed. Walk back, walk forward, feed. Once you establish that, then you can start your lateral movements, where you step right, left, feed, and you move around the dog. But the first goal is to get to be able to, where you can stand in front of your dog, and the dog doesn't just follow your hand. Make sense? Okay, Emma's going to show you one more time, then I want you guys to try it. So Emma's going to have a handful of food. She's going to lure the dog into a sit, or into a down. Okay? Drop a couple and kneel down. So wait a minute. Emma fell, right? Because the dog's elbows were off the ground. She fed the dog with elbows off the ground. So make sure that if your dog comes up, they don't get rewarded. You set them back down and then down again, and make sure that their elbows are down. Make sense? Yeah, let's see you guys try that. Try it for a couple times, and then we'll move on. So your goal is to be able to stand up in front of your dog, and your dog's standing down. Good call. So, lure the dog down. Not even under your legs. So,
No, we started to I have to really take a look, but it's just like, it's a decision, so it's like,
can you sit all the way on the ground? Get your palm on the ground? Yeah, you try this. Put your legs together. No, put your legs straight out. Put them together. There, bend your knees a little bit. Now put your hand underneath your other way though. Your other way. So he's got to either be on there. There you go. Okay, put your hand underneath your leg. Okay, drop one right there. Look at drop another one right outside his reach. And your legs touch a little bit. Drop another one right outside his reach. Okay.
you just like, does the whole.
Try again, drop another one right outside his reach. Good, so you might have to start with just that, right? So once his body drops down all the way, like, all right, good. Say yes, really feed him up. Okay, and then once he's like really familiar with that, then lure him underneath, drop his hand, wait for him to drop down, and when he drops down, feed him.
Should I tell him now?
No, you should, because he doesn't understand. No. So once you lure him, he drops down right away, then you're gonna put him down.
Yeah.
Just too soon.
It's right.
You would be saying down as immediately bowing. You don't want to push him down.
Yeah.
Sit.
Billy.
Right.
Good girl. Let's wait till he tucks his legs underneath. Good job. Just like that. Okay, so one of the things, I don't know if you remember what comes in the first class, try not to do sit and then down. Try to see how she's doing down with her dog. Teach him down the same way. Because here's what's going to happen later in life. The moment you say sit, what is he expecting to come? Right. He's going to get down.
So we have to right away to house.
Yeah. No, you just did sit.
Put him in sit.
Yeah, so see what this young lady's doing? This is how we taught sit, or how we taught down without sitting first.
Okay, so we put her down, put her legs.
Yeah, here. Can you sit all the way on the ground? You're kind of tall, so you have to sit all the way down too. Okay? There you go, that'll work. So, you're too close to that chair, buddy. There you go. So your foot is going to be in your left hand. Yep, put your left hand underneath your leg.
Yeah.
Yep, all the way underneath your leg. There you go. There you go. Put your hand left leg all the way underneath. Put your hand all the way underneath your leg. You gotta show her that way. She has no idea.
I think she's doing her last
You have to show her that way though.
presentation.
There you go, the second hand.
She told me to do it this Thursday.
Bring it this way, bring it this way.
No.
This way. Okay, so feed her for that. Here, let's try. Here, take a piece of food and toss it behind her so she gets up. Show it to her. Toss it behind her. Keep trying that. The reason being is I want her to get all the way in. Yeah, Mom, show it. There you go. Okay, now, ready? Okay, put your hand into your leg. We're trying to do this way. I don't want her to sit. I don't want her to sit. Okay? Try me. There you go. Hold this way, hold this way. Keep it low, keep your hand low. Try. Oh, good. That's what you want. So see how she dropped down without sitting first? You want to separate the sit and your down. It's two different muscle memories.
So not do it at the same time.
Yeah, don't do sit and then down. You asked her to sit, you waited for her to sit, and then you lured her down. It's kind of like this young man. You ask him to clean his room, instead he cleans your house. What do you usually do? Okay, same thing. You told her to sit, and then you told her to down. Right? So pretty soon when you tell her to sit, what is she going to expect to come?
So we tell her right now, she should be able to lie down.
She'll learn to lie down without sitting first. That makes sense? So sit and down are two different muscle memories. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
So you want her to drink legs straight out.
You got it without sitting first.
Okay, without saying sit.
Without saying sit first. Pretty soon, if you do this enough, you say down and she'll just throw her body down. She won't sit and then down. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. you drop a handful of food.
Vibration.
And that's a key, that's a key. So once the dog goes down, you drop a handful of food, you stand up really quickly, and then you kneel back down and feed.
I got it.
Okay, so I want to kind of clarify a couple things here.
But with all this, you still have to work.
So remember, these are your guys' dogs. So if you want to teach your dog to sit and then down, that's perfectly fine. However, in my book of thumbs, I really want to separate the two markers. The little dog's having some difficulty downing, so the dog needs to have to be able to down before she can really work on standing up, right? Because the dog usually doesn't understand down. Trying to stand up is going to be difficult. I don't know if you guys remember, but one of the things I encourage you guys to do with small dogs is try to bring the, if you have a picnic table or a high bed, do a lot of your training on top of a high bed, bring the dog up a little bit. That'll kind of change the dynamics. The other thing is, so once the dog understands down, you down your dog, you drop 3 or 4 pieces of food, you stand up, and while the dog is eating, you kneel back down, you feed the dog again. Stand up while the dog is eating, you kneel back down. Do that 1 or 2, 3 times, and then yes, release the dog. So the food is kind of keeping the dog there. But what it's doing is it's allowing the dog to understand that even though you're standing up, it doesn't mean they necessarily need to follow you. Right now, every time you guys move, the dog just follows you because you're a constant cash machine, right? If cash machine is moving away, you'd want to follow it too. But we're teaching the dog that when the dog downs, cash is going to appear between the dog's front feet until we say yes. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Okay. So you guys did really good tonight. One of the things that I know we covered last week, but I didn't ask you about, is the recall. We kind of played the recall game. Was anybody able to work on that this week? Yeah? How'd it go? Okay, good. Okay. All of our dogs are. All right. Well, if you guys don't have any questions, I really appreciate being here. Next week is our last week together. Next week we're going to talk about healing and walking on the leash, and then that'll be our last week together.
I need to do that.
Yes.
I have a question about the collar of this collar.
Sure, we can then talk about that. Okay? All right, you guys, appreciate you guys being here. I'll see you next week.